All right, we're here with Mike and Rob from OneDrop Spearfishing. Hello,
Hey,
boys.
what's up, guys?
Hey, Brett.
So I had the pleasure of meeting you guys and spending quite a bit of time with you guys. Yeah, why don't you kind of share everybody what your background is in spearfishing and how you got into it?
Go ahead, man.
Um, well, I mean, we live on an island, right? Paradise. There's not much else to do. Keep you out of trouble. For me, it was spearfishing. So I've been in the water with my pops growing up all my life, and then really started consistently spearfishing with one of our team members, Manette, after he came back from Hawaii in 2009 or 10. So it's been like 10 years now, solid spearfishing twice a week, pretty consistent, and I haven't stopped since. So kind of addicted.
I guess seriously got into it in 2009 when I sailed across the Pacific. We took a boat from from Canada to up to Alaska, then down to Mexico, and then across to Australia. And so, I mean, yeah, we were in the most pristine places possible. And so, yeah, started spearfishing, of course, more consistently there. Certainly very weird and very different than now because we were in such pristine locations often that we didn't use camouflage or any of that kind of stuff, just like a single banded gun. I never even used a reel until I'd moved to Guam. So anyway, so yeah, we shot a lot of really, really amazing fish in really sort of really easy conditions. I never had to dive very deep or anything. And then took a hiatus when I was in grad school and all that. And then moving to Guam 3 years ago, really opened my eyes to a totally different sort of very advanced technical aspects of spearfishing, just because of need, right? This place is, you have to dive deep to catch fish here. So
yeah, it's hard times.
Camouflage and double, triple banded guns and all the floats and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I've learned a ton since I've been fishing with these crazy guys.
So I know when I first came down there a couple of years ago, we started pushing out offshore more and all that, and it was really cool to be a part of that. So when you go, let's say you're going offshore, like what are some things that you look for? Obviously banks and things like that, but when you go to hit those places and you get there, what are some things do you look for in order to set up to hunt fish? Or do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
sure. I don't know. For me, I mean, I'm a biologist, right? And so I think that I've learned in my education that most of the natural world is quite predictable in many cases. If you can understand a couple of variables that are important to natural systems, then you can predict sort of what's going to happen within reason, within a fairly reasonable way. And so I think nowadays, I mean, going fishing or going hunting has changed, of course, a lot in the last, since Google Earth, basically. And so, yeah, before I even moved to Guam, I was checking out the seafloor and checking out all the nautical charts to make sure I knew exactly what was there. And so that's really where it starts. It's almost like you have to do your homework in the library before you get in the water when you go to a new place. Now it seems to be the way of it.
So what are those variables? There's the upwelling, right?
Yeah. So that's all
temperature of water,
oceanography stuff. Yeah, that's right. So the variables that I kind of looked for when I got here and we kind of figured out where I was just looking at some of the basic things like topography and where's some cool looking topography. And then for around here in Guam, we're just sitting on the tops of all these little volcanoes. Some of them stick out of the water and some of them are submerged. And so that's kind of the first thing to look for topography. And then, where there's small fish, where there's upwelling, which usually brings up nutrients, then there's zooplankton, phytoplankton, and fish feed. So we just sort of looked at it kind of in an analytical way, almost from the get-go. I mean, we were talking about these things. Okay, where should we find these fish? Let's look at a chart. This is where the water movements are. Let's see if there's fish there. And so by ground truthing those observations, we we can pretty much find the species we're looking for 100% of the time now. Most, if they're in the area.
Yeah. So I remember the one time we went out offshore and there was that boil from the updwelling that was probably the size of a football field. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, it just looked like there had to be something cruising around on those updwellings and things like that. But I was afraid to kind of jump in because you didn't know there was so much water moving. Like, what if it's going to like a downdraft or something?
Was I there?
No, Rob, you weren't there, but obviously I was with Mike.
Yeah, I remember that too. I remember we kind of looked at it and we're like, "Hey, you want to get in?" And we're kind of like, "I don't think so, man. That doesn't look like I can't swim against that at all."
You come with me?
Yeah. So, and I mean, not oddly enough, exactly that particular location is one of the locations that yellowfin tuna are consistently caught, right?
Yeah, big dogs.
And so, so there's obvious reason why that is. All that upwelling is bringing up nutrients, and the fish are there. So,
yeah. So can you walk, like, I guess, the listeners through when we see now a bank or some sort of topography that looks interesting. You get there. What are the steps that you do when we get there? Like, I know them, but can you share them with everybody?
Great secrets, man. You can't give that away.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't mind telling. We figured it out, and it's not rocket surgery or anything. When we go to a new place, we kind of have a protocol. We follow it almost every time without fail.
Right.
Charm.
And now I'm confident to say that we can find dogtooth tuna 100% of the time, right? We can go out there, and I'm not going to guarantee anything because you're not paying for anything, but we can put you on top of a dog for sure.
It's not the biggest dog. But it's a dog.
And so that, I mean, just seeing them is not the end of the game, right? I mean, it's up to you to get it in the boat, but putting the boat on top of them is pretty standard now, and that's because we totally just are analytical about it and follow a system. Our system, is basically we go out to the locations and we just check to see what the weather's doing and what the currents are doing. So kind of the first thing is you go to where you think the topography is going to be, and dogtooth hang out on the banks where the surface, where the shallow slope of the surface comes up and tops out. So we'll put you right there and then see which way the current's going. And then, so somebody usually jumps in the water and watches, if they can see the bottom, watches what the current's doing. And if the current's moving from deep to shallow, then the conditions are probably right. And then the next thing is just to find some interesting topography, like a cliff or like a very steep drop off. For some reason, that seems to hold fish. It seems to hold rainbow runners.
Yeah.
And then once you see the rainbow runners, then you're in the right place, and there's going to be dogs circling underneath. So it's just kind of a system. We just get out there. We're like 10 minutes to the location, boys. Everybody starts suiting up. We throw one guy in the water. He looks at the topography and sits in the water for 5 minutes and just watches which way the current's going. If the current's going in the right direction, then we get back in the boat, head offshore to about 300 feet, drop back in the water with the whole team, and then they just get pushed from deep water into shallow water. And when it starts lighting up, it starts happening. Yeah,
I just want to touch upon, you said 300 feet. Have you spent quite a bit of time in America lately? Because that's very it's very American of you.
The rest of the world that's actually using the metric system. Yeah, no, I have to talk to these guys in the way they understand sometimes. So 100 meters is my magic number to get in at.
Right. So we're talking about hunting dogs, obviously. And unfortunately, most of the lessons are learned through failure and my far shots and stupidity. What's like your ideal setup for like going after large dogtooth?
Pretty standard, big shaft, two floats on a breakaway system. 8 millimeters plus on the shaft, slip tips if you have them, double floppers even better to me. I don't know, some people disagree, but
You're talking about the gear setup or sort of the system setup. What specifically you're interested in?
Yeah,
there?
well, just the gear setup, and then well, over the course of time, what we talked about when I was down there was our whole system setup too. Like somebody's working the chum, somebody's got the tuna gun, somebody's got the smaller gun.
Sure. Yeah, we've got that kind of down to a really good system right now. Yeah, so in terms of gear, as Rob said, just strong as you can make it, because
bulletproof.
They will find the weak link and break it for sure. And so just strong on the gear. But yeah, I really like the system we have right now. I really like it when there's 3 guys in the water for a couple of reasons. Just safety. I mean, and it seems to work well. We basically have a setup where we drop the flasher in the middle and the chum's usually on the flasher. And usually the guy working the flashers and working the chum will have a reel gun. And the idea there is that they're just chumming like crazy. And then when the rainbow runners come in, it's, they're just as tasty or more tasty. So the guy on the chum actually gets to shoot more often because they get the reel gun to shoot rainbow runners. And then on the outside of both the guys with the chum, you'll have 2 dog shooters on the sides. And so the sides basically just wait to see a dog come up, and they're on breakaways with, the float systems. And then, when an opportunity arises and a dog comes up to the flasher or to the chum, then it's their turn to take a shot.
Right on.
And I love that system. It works for a few reasons. Eyes are in the water, but not too many. Each have a job to do, and it's so, one guy's hanging onto the flasher and making sure the chum and the flasher stay together. And then 2 guys are just looking for dogs and anything else that comes in. And then I also like it because it's safe. You've got, when one person's down, you got 2 people up, and in the blue water, that's good, especially when the sharks show up.
Oh my God, the sharks!
It's just nice. I don't know. I just like to know that if somebody were to have a shallow water blackout, or the sharks, something happened, that the sharks catch a leg or something like that by accident, that you got somebody to deal with the gear and somebody to sort of initiate the rescue. So. It just works well for us. And then usually then there's a driver, of course, the live boat. And depending on the weather conditions, most of the time we have 2 people in the boat. So one's just sort of a spotter, making sure that everything's good and paying attention to the divers, and then the driver just driving the boat. So so our system seems to work really well with 5 people, 3 in the water, 2 in the boat.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that information, by the way, too. I remember it took a while to kind of develop that system, and we did a lot of talking about that, and it's kind of cool to see it, working out for you guys. And then Rob, you shot that 90-pound, was it the Dogtooth right after I left?
A 40-kilo one.
Yeah. You want to walk us through that? 40 kilo.
Yeah, that was a really fun day, because that was our first time having two people out there with us, Steve and Lauren.
Oh yeah.
So these guys, they saw me from a serious person, my age, 26 years old and everything, to a kid after shooting that Dogtooth. It was I was a little kid, and I was screaming like a girl, dude. But so we were basically. Actually, Lauren was on the flashers and the chum. She didn't have a gun. She just wanted to film and just dive and just see what we do, right? And so she was doing a great job. I was actually freaking out because we shot something small after that or before that, and I turn around and I look at Lauren, and she's chumming up a storm still, man, and she's flashing super well, really a good team player, And then this big dog shows up, and I don't remember who was in the water. You were in the water with me, right? Okay, so Mike was in the water with me, and I look at Mike, and he's not looking at it. And then I look at Steve, and I think he's the one that's fighting a rainbow runner or something. So I'm like, okay, dude, this dog's mine, I swim full throttle straight at it, popped it right in the shoulder, came out the gill plate. It was a perfect shot. Probably hit a lot of vitals. So it took I only have one float set up. It took the float down like
I just
past
remember the
visibility
shot
mark,
going
dude.
off and watching the float just go down and down. I mean,
You couldn't see it.
the visibility there is about 150 feet to
Yeah.
200 feet on a good day when we have amazing water out here. And that float just gone.
It was gone. I didn't think it was coming back. You could see in my video I posted on Instagram. The float goes and disappears, and I'm like, I get up to the surface, and I'm like, please come back, please. It was so funny, man.
Yeah, I can't, dude. That's a testament to that product. I can't believe that thing surfaced back up too, because that thing was moving down.
Yeah, guys, Evolve Diving Floats, man. I gotta shout them out, not only because they're my sponsor, but it was proven at that moment that, like, dude, that float is indestructible.
I just remember it coming back up. I looked over and like it was down for a minute and a half, and then I just looked over and I was like, kind of just out of the middle of nowhere, just nothing but blue, and then this little float started coming back up, and it was coming up so fast.
It was still when it came up. It wasn't moving.
It wasn't like usually it like circles or they kind of spin as they come back up, but this one was just coming straight up, and I can just remember. Oh, I didn't think something was on it.
No, I thought
the dog had ripped off or whatever. Sharks or something.
Got it.
And then
you think like maybe the fish was just swimming back up, and then that's kind of what happened. No,
when it was coming back up, it was just getting pulled straight.
Yeah, it was dead. It was dead after that.
Yeah, it was totally stoned. Died.
Yeah, it seems like with the dogs, they get that just insane initial run. And if you can stop them, if you can get like weather that little like sprint, they're pretty much done after that. Have you noticed that as well?
On the float system, yeah. On a reel, it's like on and off.
Yeah.
So you know what
I don't recommend that. Yeah. Real good.
Yeah, we should talk about a road trip with you shooting dogs on a reel gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I instantly regretted that.
I wish I was, man. That sounded fun.
Yeah, that water was insane. I mean, I haven't traveled too much in well, I've been to Tahiti, Fiji, and that like that, but that water just was the clearest. You look down and it was like you think it's 30 feet and it's 70 feet, or something like that.
Look at your watch. You're like, I'm about to black out.
Yeah, swimming to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good story. So would you consider that like your dream fish? Like, what would be your guys' dream fish?
Oh man, stick face, old stick face. Big blue marlin, dude, in our home water. That's a dream fish.
Yeah, I know you've been chasing that for a while.
Yeah, 4 years to be precise. I've only seen them once, and we weren't even targeting it.
I think I had reel gun time.
Yeah, we had reel guns looking for wahoo, and then we saw a big blue marlin. Didn't get a shot, but it was cool.
I don't know. For me, I'm not really into like dream fish kind of a thing. The thing that I like the most is that it's part of our nearly everyday or certainly weekly lifestyle here. Love to get food for our family and friends, and then for me, that's just sort of starts. Once you see it, and once it hits the boat, then that's like a third of the way there, right?
Bonus.
And then so it's the fun part, and you get to shoot the fish and all that kind of stuff. But then I don't know, the whole culinary aspect of it is really where I get excited too. It's actually getting to be a problem now, to the point where when I see a fish like swim by, I'm just picturing like which part I'm going to make which dish out of. Like I'm like, oh look, wahoo, there goes tacos. So that's the best part for me. I don't really have like a dream fish. I'm more just about like, what's the next amazing dish that we're going to try and make.
Right. I think too, when you obviously when you stay focused like that, it's almost like showing respect to the fish by just trying to, like, when you have friends over, like how we did it all the time at your, both your guys' houses, like where you have your friends over and everybody's joining in and eating it. And it's just that circle of life, but it's just everything about it just feels so good. I love it.
The best.
Yeah.
I don't want to preachy or anything, but there is like a tremendous amount of satisfaction derived from that, right? Like you've gone out, you've put the effort in to get all your equipment ready, and all the time it takes to get everything sort of set up to do what you're going to do. You go out, you'll successfully land a fish. Of course, that's always fun and always, what the dreams are made of. But then it just continues on for like a day or two when you're smoking a bunch of, tuna or wahoo on the smoker, and then you give it to a bunch of your friends or you have everybody over for a big feast. That's a huge amount of satisfaction, right? That's tremendous.
I feel like that's a primal thing too. Like just something in your body and you're just like, I'm supposed to be doing this, I love it.
That's my calling.
It certainly does allow you to like,
oh yeah,
a little bit, but I don't know. It's hugely, the thing that I think we're super fortunate here, like we're incredibly fortunate, is that it's not like a once in a year trip for us here. Like it's every week we can go out, or sometimes twice a week. And so it really has just become like the lifestyle. Like,
yeah,
I mean, this is going to sound a bit pretentious, but we don't eat frozen fish anymore because I noticed that the taste makes a huge difference, even if it's been frozen for a few days. So we'll freeze it and keep, if we get a big catch, we keep it and make a bunch of stuff out of it. But now we're trying out other things like smoking and other preserving methods, so that so you can kind of share with your family and friends, but you don't have to like save it for later kind of a thing, right? I mean, I don't mean to sound we're going out there and pillaging the ocean or anything, but
just go out and get a couple.
Go out and get one fish a week or one fish every couple of days, and feed your family with it, and it's always fresh, and it's just an incredible quality of life.
Yeah, that's what OneDrop's all about, I think. That's where that OneDrop comes from.
One drop, one fish, and then done. I just think it's interesting. I think it's interesting too, because like when I look back on the time that I still daydream about in Guam with you guys, I don't think of like the individual fish, that short 30 seconds of shooting it and getting it back. I just remember the whole experience of being with my friends and swimming from the day I first met Mike and we went out on the reef right in your backyard, and then like when I pull up to the marina and I look over and I hadn't even met you guys personally, and you and the rest of the OneDrop boys, like you guys are like, "What's up, Brett?" And like just that whole thing.
Cool. Man, we all did well that day.
Yeah, you guys. I remember like it was such an introduction because we were trying to dive the fads, and then we came up to you guys and you had that stack full of like that cooler stack full of fish.
That's right, you guys were out of ice or something.
Yeah,
we had to take all the
we're like, yeah, we got one, and you guys are like, oh, can you help us with the it was incredible. And it was definitely humbling, dude. Like, you know how it is, you learn so much when you travel, and it really like shapes, makes you a better spearfisherman and a better person, I feel like, too. So like kind of leads me into you went and did that Bluewater World Cup. And I think the thing that was always interesting for me was that you had never been off Guam before. And then you left Guam. And when you left Guam, you went way down into Mexico to do that competition. And like, what did you learn down there? How was that like going from diving Guam to this new area, new variables and things like that?
Well, oh man, dude. So the diving aspect was culture shock. Like you said, I've never done any diving other than like Guam, right? I mean, besides Rota. But when you come from warm, clear, crystal clear bath water to diving Baja, it was crazy. On the surface, it was all right, but over there they had this thing. It's called a thermocline. That's where all the good fish are at. So like you'd go from like Guam waters on the surface and it would be fine. Like you can hunt
83.
Guam. Yeah, like that. Or I think the temperature was like 78 or like almost 80 during the summertime when I went. So hunting wahoo's okay. Hunting wahoo, mahi, whatever. On the surface, but when you hit that thermocline, it goes from that nice warm bath water and it was kind of clear up there to like chocolate milk that's like on the verge of freezing, man. It was like 60 degrees or something like that in thermocline, and it just hits you and you can't hold your breath. You gotta go back up and like rethink your strategy. How are we gonna shoot this amberjack? You know, like this is crazy.
Yeah, and then there were
surprising things. But like other than that, hunting the pelagic species was pretty similar to here, just minus the ultra clear water.
and then all the guys there too. Like there's so many. I guess I don't want to say famous, but I mean pretty popular, well seasoned guys there too. Did you get a chance to learn from like pick each other's brains a lot?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's definitely a bunch of big names over there. Pete Coriel was over there. One of the guys that really stood out to me was he was really competitive. Was Jason Whitehead. He was the second place, and then Pete was first. So yeah, I got to chat with them a bunch. I was watching Jason as he was like making his own flashers. I was talking to Pete about his camera gear and what he's using for like filming and stuff. So yeah, I learned a lot. One thing I did learn, they're all using a lot of those Alamani guns, those big, I call it the big boy gun. One day I would get me one and be a big boy.
$3,000, right?
Yeah, they're like $3,000.
Big budget.
Yeah.
Price is nice too, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of guns, like what are you guys using right now? Like obviously for your pelagic fish when you're going out.
Yeah, I don't know. My thoughts on the guns have sort of evolved over the last few years for sure. To be honest, I'm actually trying to go smaller and smaller now in terms of like shaft diameters. Not lengths. Lengths of guns are still quite large, Bluewater guns. But I see these guys, I guess for big bluefin and big yellowfin tuna, you need these massive cannons. But most of the stuff that we're using around here are like for mahi and wahoo, and the dogs are like, pretty long shafts. I've got like 190 centimeter shafts on, 7 mil and 8 mil shafts, 2 and 3 bands for any of the dogs, of course. But yeah, for the most part, I think I'm actually starting to think smaller is better in terms of more accurate shot placement and thinner diameter for penetration. Right. And so in that case, I'm veering away from the really big diameter shafts to like smaller diameter with stronger cable shooting line and cable slip tips now. So yeah, that's sort of what I'm using. I don't know if you want me to name drop or anything. I'm all into HotRodSpearguns right now and got a couple of his going. Yeah. He's great. Paul's great because he just custom makes exactly what I want. So
and he knows it's for doggies. So that's what he specializes in.
Yeah. So
mine's pretty simple too. It's a 3-band aim right, cuttlebone. They call it the King Venom. It's as simple as that. It's not a roller or anything. It's a conventional 3-band gun, pipe gun. So, I mean, it does the trick. I haven't had a fish where the shaft hasn't not penetrated it. So, it does the job. And then for the reef stuff or like wahoo and smaller pelagics, I got a 2-band gun, 2-band reel gun. I like to use the reel gun sometimes to keep you humble.
Nice. Yeah. I know that Dean started doing it where he's necking down the end of the spears to make them more hydrodynamic and more efficient. And I imagine that would be good for penetration. But I haven't personally used one. So
I haven't either. I didn't know he was doing that.
Yeah. He's taking them, the larger diameter shafts and I'm not really sure if it's a foot or 6 inches, and he's necking them down to where it'll probably make them more susceptible to getting bent there. But if you're shooting a fish that big, it's probably going to bend anything.
Yeah, right. Well, I know that's good for slip tips because you don't want that slide ring sliding past a certain point of the shaft, right? So
right.
For slip tips, that's perfect. That's what you want. So.
Yeah, we usually put like a piece of electrical tape or something to stop it from sliding back. Because I've had it where it slides back penetrates and then pulls right out, and that thing gets stuck for some reason. That slide ring just doesn't. Yeah. I lost like a I don't know, 50-pound yellowtail like that. Would have been my biggest, and I cried. I was like,
you lost it, so you got to make it a little bit heavier than 50 pounds.
Yeah. Oh, it was like there's a world record, you know.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, of course. We'll see. So go, like, you guys, I know we were going to do that one trip, hush hush, to a certain place. What is your like dream spearfishing trip? Like, do you have a dream location? Like, some people say Ascension Island, things like that. And I know, Mike, you've traveled to all these crazy places, which we could probably get into, where you look in every hole and there's a giant grouper staring at you in the face, you were telling me. So having experienced that, what do you think would be like your dream trip?
I don't know. That's hard to say, I guess. I mean, we're kind of living it right now. I mean,
I was just going to say that.
We literally go spearfishing like 3 or 4 times a week, man. It's not a trip anymore. It's just a lifestyle. And so there's that. But of course, what's around the next corner is always sort of a driver. And so, yeah, we just started planning our next sort of longer trip we got 2 on the go, maybe one in March and then one for May, June. And so, you just want to try and go to remote places just to see if there's more pristine conditions and dinosaurs. And so, yeah, we've got a couple. We've got one planned for the Northern Marianas Islands, which is ultra remote, and then we've got another one we're thinking about some of the other Micronesian islands. And so, yeah, it's just going to see where we can go to apply our formula and see if we can come up with some interesting experiences, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely times where I've been daydreaming for months and months about the next trip, and I personally have to have like something on the horizon to sort of daydream about.
Yeah, that's
a big one. I've always got like 2 or 3.
It's like never satisfied. I feel like, I mean, you are satisfied, but you're always like, we could do better. We could do this. What about this place? Like, it's that adventure part, that I think, right? It's just, I think that's why we're kind of outdoorsy people, so to speak, anyways. We always want that adventure, Yeah,
that's right. Just to explore sort of new places, and exploring reefs underwater is just pure fun, right? But it's really about just the whole thing involved, right? The preparation. I mean, my wife's given me a grief about, taking up the floor and gotten all the gear all over the place. And I'm always constantly just sort of fixing things and tweaking things. But that's a huge part of the trip, right? The dream trip is the preparation, and then all the scouting time that you're doing on all the nautical charts and on Google Earth, and then like organizing boats and all that. All leads up to that 10-second trigger pull, right? And then the culinary aspects of it after that. So I find I have to have like my everyday routine, which is, we spearfish a lot, and then just locally, and then you have to have like a sort of a smaller trip that you're planning in a couple of weeks, and then you've got like a medium trip that could happen when the weather's right. If the weather's sort of the perfect weather scenario comes, you like to have a chance to go out to a new place you've been thinking about. And then you have to have like a big trip that's like one every 6 months or every year or whatever, to like get all the guys together, go out, someplace new.
Right now, how about you, Rob?
Man, I gotta say, we live in such a perfect predicament where what I want is like just right across the street over the next island up. Like, it's like 40 miles away. We can get there on a weekend. And it's as good as it gets,
Oh, I know. Yeah. That's awesome, man. That was, yeah. Wow.
But I gotta say, man, Jaga is making Fiji look really good right now.
Oh, yeah. All those giant dogs, big GTs pulling up. I know. And it's got, I think about that too, because I've been to Fiji, and it's like, and I mean, this is on my honeymoon, and I was spearfishing then too, but I didn't know. Like, if I had known now what I knew then, it would have been like, maybe the honeymoon wouldn't have happened. I don't know, because I would have been on the water the whole time. But
And you would have been divorced.
Yeah, before it even started. Like I saw like some of the just giant fish there. I mean, so it's not just that reef where they're hitting, it's that whole area, you know? And it's like the more remote you get, right? The whole adventure aspect. What's there? You know, even if you don't pull the trigger on the fish, but just to see it.
Yeah. Just to make your heart beat fast, man. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys have been doing a lot of competitions in Guam, and I'll toot your horns. You've been winning a lot of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it is what it is.
But
This guy's just winning them just as much as I am.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you guys do before competitions, or what do you do to prepare for competitions to help you with your success?
we got this well, I got this this ritual, or not ritual, but how would I say it?
I got some good pictures of his ritual.
It's a custom, it's a tradition that I go out the night before, have a couple of beers, couple of women. No, I'm just kidding, not a women part. But yeah, just have a couple of beers and show up hungover to the competition and pray.
Yeah.
That's
well, I mean, let's not gloss over that, Rob. Let's get a little more into. I mean, we went out. I think Mike was on a team. I was on a team from with Rob from Side Slip, and
side slips.
Yeah, and we were in the water for like 7 hours. Come back in, you guys were dry. Like, how long were you in the water for?
I would say about that day it was the UMATIC competition, the shore dive swim out, right?
Yeah.
I think we were in the water for about an hour.
And you won the biggest fish?
Yeah, well, Pete, my partner, he shot the biggest. And then I just put a cherry on top with the
3 years in a row. These guys have done the exact same thing.
Yeah.
The competition at that particular spot, UMATIC, is actually known for being the toughest one in the region because it's kind of overfished there, and so you really have to work at it. And it's also no boats allowed, so you have to swim right from shore and then swim back. So yeah, I think it's definitely got the reputation for being the toughest competition in the region for sure. And these guys' strategy is just so they have like most points or whatever for the most fish caught, but then they also have the biggest fish award, and these guys just go for the biggest fish each time.
It's easier than trying to work a dead reef, right? So we go out, and Pete, for some crazy reason,
Lucky Pete.
This is why we call him Lucky Pete. First year, he shoots a 46-pound wahoo in the deadest region of Guam. The next year, same exact place, same exact strategy, he shoots a 52-pound wahoo in the deadest region of Guam. And then the next year, he goes out, and in the first 5 minutes, he shoots I think it was like 24 pounds, a 24-pound GT. And I was so hungover, man. I was begging him. I was like, going. I was like, I think we're going to win. Let's go in. I haven't seen a 24 GT in 2 years. So let's go in, man. We got enough. And so I think we just took that one over these guys. I think they had like a fish that came in at like 17 or 18 pounds that day. So
that's a good
strategy, man. We grind it out on that one. We just go and grind 60, 70 dives, and you're just swimming and trying to put fish on the stringer, and then anyways, got lucky on that one too. But we put the effort in, and these guys are just sitting on the beach, hanging out, smoking and drinking beers by like 9 in the morning or something.
So I think the tip is drink beer the night before, because whatever apparently it comes out of your pores, it attracts monster fish. Like
I don't condone that, people.
Yeah.
There's an awesome, sweet picture I took of him just like leaning up against the tire of his truck, laying on the ground, just looking like hammered. Just before he gets in the water.
I wasn't feeling it, man.
An hour before he wins the competition, just like completely thrashed, hungover. Sweet.
That was too funny.
I love it. So you guys, we're talking about, when we do the competition, we have buddies and all that stuff, and because in Guam, you're diving, I say deep, but I mean deep, what, like, depends on where we're hunting, but mostly, I mean, you guys diving 90 feet sometimes, right? 80, 90 feet, pretty consistently. With being a good buddy, can you give people some input on how to, things to look for, how to properly spot your buddy and things like that? I mean, because there was a guy, there was just a recent death again, right, in Guam with a sailor or airman or something.
Yeah, man, it's sad. It was the person that usually rescues the people that are in trouble, So when that happens, it really hits. It really hits the rest of the pre-divers,
Yeah,
it's pretty common around here. So I don't know. I mean, you want to talk about safe diving practices? Go take a class, right?
Yeah.
And one of the just be anal about it, right? Just be super, super on top of it all the time because it happens super fast. For me, that was kind of one of the major kind of challenges when I first moved here, is that, like I had kind of alluded to before, I hadn't really had to work very hard to spearfish because we'd been in really pristine places that you could like you were saying, you could swim on down 10 feet and basically under every big coral head there was a giant grouper hanging out, and you just shoot it in the face and go get for dinner, right? It was just like easy. And so when I got here, the first couple of times I was diving out, I was just like, where's all the big fish? Like there was very few big fish, at least initially. I really had to learn how to look for them and bring them in. And so there was a super steep learning curve for me. And so I kind of learned that these guys are diving super deep. So I had to completely revamp my system and learn how to frenzel and go take a proper freediving course. I kind of was like, I've been freediving for 10 years. I'm not going to learn too much. And I totally learned lots, especially the rescue aspects of it. That was the most important thing, I think. And then we've used them. We've seen them happen. We've had guys black out on us. I blacked out once and got saved. My bacon got saved by my partner. And so, diving sort of consistently and super deep here, it's a challenge. And it's super dangerous here. So you want to throw some statistics. In the last 3 years alone in the Marianas Island, 9, it was 8, but now just as of 2 weeks ago, 9 young spearfishers have died due to hypoxia or shallow water blackout, just in the past 3 years alone. And so that's a huge deal, right? That's too high. That's way insanely high. And so one of the factors associated with that is kind of an interesting thing.
No, it's good. I just wanted to talk about that, just to again kind of reiterate it for all the guys that, when you go from diving in the kelp beds, where here, like Rob was saying, you're hunting around the thermocline a lot of times, you don't have to dive real deep. So everybody's like, I dive alone. And it's like, you can do that if you're diving at 20 feet and, sometimes hanging out there. But when you start dropping and trying to get bottom time on the bottom and trying to coerce a lot of fish in, like, that's when you really got to know to step your game up and just be careful. So I just like to kind of reiterate that to the newer guys or guys that haven't traveled much, and, something I learned too.
And in a way, like as you alluded to luring fish in, for me, here was an incredible experience. I'm still learning tons and tons, but it was completely different hunting here. A lot of the hunting techniques that I'd used in the South Pacific and Fiji and Vanuatu and all these places didn't work at all here. So a lot of stuff I went and had learned how to lure in wahoo and lure in, a few different things. It just doesn't work here. And so we had to completely learn. And of course, hanging out with the local guys that are doing it. I liken it to fly fishing. When you're like spin casting, you just drag a line through the water and something shiny, and hopefully a fish bites. Whereas you transition to fly fishing, and you have to learn all about what is hatching in that area at that particular location and that location at that time. And so there's just this entire other world of learning about it. Here in Guam, it was all about when you jump in the water, it's just not tons of fish everywhere, but there are fish here. You just have to bring them into you for the most part.
Yeah, they're smart. So, really smart.
And so I've learned like 4 or 5 different grunting techniques in order to like grunt in different species of fish, right? And the guys here are awesome at it, right? And so I'm learning a whole bunch of different things from that. And so, yeah, that combines with the freediving aspect. So not only are you going deep, you have to have long bottom times so that you can get down, lay on the bottom,
hide,
yeah, like literally stuff yourself inside a hole or beside a coral head or something. And then start grunting in a very particular way to try and wade out to bring in a fish into shot range. And also long shots, right? I mean, we use long guns with 2 and 3 bands just because you got to put it out there. And then if you have that experience where you're down there for, a longer time than you're used to, then you got to get to the surface again. And so, yeah, the shallow water blackouts here, because of that whole scenario, it's basically that you have to dive deeper, stay longer, and employ a bunch of different techniques to bring these fish in. It makes you more susceptible to shallow water blackout. And so absolutely dive with a partner, one down, one up, and making sure you're paying attention to that partner is huge here. It's like the number one thing here.
Diving with a partner, man, is automatic. It doesn't matter if you're spearfishing, free diving, snorkeling, you need a partner.
I mean, I say that, and you go out once in a while by yourself, and I certainly do.
Yeah, but we're hunting bua, and
but it's very, very, very controlled. And I'm a hypocrite here. I'm totally saying you got to have a partner, and I'll go out by myself. But you absolutely set limits, right? Like 40 feet is my max limit here when I'm by myself, and I have my watch that an alarm goes off. At a certain time. And so I'm just like, okay, my alarm's off. I'm going back up no matter what when you're diving by yourself. And that's more of just like you're after work or after, early morning fish before work kind of a thing. But then when you kind of don't really consider that serious because you're diving very shallow. But at the moment you're actually out for a fish with your buddy, then that's cool because you can open it up, right? You can like say, okay, I'm doing a couple of deep dives here. Watch me make sure it's good, right? And push your limits and all that stuff. And so, but yeah, as the diving partner, you will not live without having a super strong partner that's right on top of you.
Yeah, have a partner you can trust. That's another thing.
Yeah, that's the other fun part of it too, right? Is the camaraderie that kind of develops. Like you have your diving partners and you really learn like how they dive specifically, like whether they come up and they give you the okay symbol as soon as they get to the surface, or whether they do it out of the water, or whether they don't do it at all, but they kind of look at you and you're kind of watching them for a little bit and you just kind of know what to look for. And so having a consistent diving partner or a couple of partners is super key for being able to kind of push your limits because you know what to look for and you kind of know how to keep each other safe. But anyway, that's certainly an enjoyable part of it. And when you're diving with somebody new, it's kind of like, remember, go back to the basics. Big old okay, watch them for 30 seconds at the surface when they come back up, and then you're kind of, game on, sort of playing the newbie spearfisher when you're kind of breaking in somebody new in the depths here. Anyway, that's why I find it.
It probably makes them feel like super comfortable too if they know that you're watching them all the time.
Absolutely.
Being a newcomer spearing with someone and you're just like, notice they're like keeping a good eye on you. Like that's got to make them feel good and safe, right? So they'll start to push their limits. And probably black out, but
well, time I ever dove with Rob, I remember I dove with me and this guy named Tim, and he's a freediving instructor and a Spearo. And so Tim and I have been diving together, and we kind of were used to each other. And the first time Rob took us out to this new spot, Tim and I were kind of, I don't want to say lackadaisical in that we were kind of like, we were just comfortable with each other, and we weren't giving each other like the AOKs, but we were watching each other. And this guy was like right in your face. He's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And we're like, yeah, we're good, man. And you're like, and so I'm alive. Yeah, we're good. Thanks, you.
It wasn't like that, but
you were like every single time, and I was anyway, the funny part after was Tim and I were like, man, that guy showed us up on safety for sure. We weren't being as nearly as safe as that guy. And so anyway, it was super comforting, and that's totally how it should be. And we try to, make sure that's the case, especially when diving with somebody you haven't killed before.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Tim's a cool guy.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. I remember that video with the great white, right? The one in Hawaii. Was that Tim that sent it to us?
Yeah, the one with Ocean Ramsey and everything.
Why you gotta go there?
Hey, shout out to Ocean Ramsey, man. She's pretty. Yeah. But that's about it.
Don't get me started.
Okay, let's move it.
Moving on.
Since we're talking about scholars, so Mike,
That's a terrible segue.
you obviously you're an educated man. You have your doctorate in biology, right? What exactly is your specific?
I did undergrad in marine biology, and my PhD was in neurophysiology. So I currently work on sort of ecophysiology work here in the lab. Yeah,
there's a lot of big words there. So the one thing that I always find was really unique about spearfishing with you is that you, when you shared with me when we went diving, you're like, okay, this is this fish, and you can like. I love the fact that I can ask you so many questions, and you're so knowledgeable on a biology level about the fish. How do you think that is like helped you? Well, I mean, what do you think, other than understanding the fish or understanding the fish ID and all that stuff, how do you think your background has helped you in spearfishing, like understanding how visibility works or understanding
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know if it makes me any better or anything like that. I guess you could do fish counts or something, but I'm sort of try and look at it sort of a logical way, right? That I kind of view the world as a bit of a machine. So it's basically an electrical chemical machine, like your body is, so is the ocean, and everything kind of works in quite a predictable way. I mean, we as biologists look at things in science, use the scientific method to sort of look at things quite practically, and it turns out that things are quite predictable. I mean, there's some randomness associated with it, but if you just find the factors that are involved in describing that scenario, oftentimes, if you're looking close enough, they're predictable. And so our example where we first started out talking about how we predict finding dogs in our region, Dogtooth in our region, those were just like 3 or 4 variables that are very predictable. And once we started applying those variables, or looking for them and going out when those variables lined up in a sort of a predictable way, we find the dogs 100% of the time now, right? And so when it comes to fish, that's kind of the same thing. I think that I mean, it's still fun because there's some randomness associated with it, but I think in many things they're very predictable. Like, for example, I mean, Rob, where do you find uku, right? If you want to go shoot an uku today, where would you specifically go look?
I know, but I won't tell you.
That's right. So he's looking for a specific habitat, right? So you're not going to go to the shallow reef. You're not going to, at least around here, there's a very specific set of variables that you're going to go, and I guarantee you can chum up or go and see an uku, grunt up an uku 100% of the time, right? Landing the shot is a different story, but at least seeing one is what's important. And so you can kind of say that for almost every fish around here. Some of the pelagics are a little less predictable, like mahi and wahoo, because they have seasonality. But even that's really predictable, right? And so as a scientist, I don't know, I kind of look at it that way and trying to be quite analytical about it. And if you just figure out where their habitat is and figure out what water conditions and the wave conditions and the weather conditions are conducive to that particular animal, you're going to be able to find them quite easily. And that's borne out time and time again because we've been analytical about it. There's no magic and there's no wishing out there. It just
there is a lucky Pete, though.
Yeah, fortunate.
That part is true.
And is beer one of those variables that those factors you guys throw in there?
For me, yes. For me, yes.
Not me, man. You need
That's
some good night's
my
sleep.
ticket, man. That's my ticket to the podium.
Yeah,
Well,
anyway.
awesome. So like I'm pretty much going to wrap it up here, but like, is there anything you guys want to share that you didn't get a chance to talk about, or anything at all? Like anybody you want to pitch? Like obviously, like we talked about Hot Rod, Evolve, tested and proven, I guess, yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming on the show. And I know I'm kind of being long winded, but I really appreciate the hospitality and sharing that world with me. And I will forever be grateful. It was incredible. And I love to come back and do it again someday for sure.
You owe us, man. You owe us big time. When we show up in San Diego, you're going to take us out and show us the world down there for sure.
All right. I got a boat. Let's do it. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, sweet.
Bluefin, man.
Yeah, summertime, San Diego. Let's go.
Yeah, it's looking good for me this summer, dude. I'm going to be there for a bit, so let's hit it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so all I gotta say is stay tuned, everyone. We got some trips lined up. Hopefully one with you, Brett, to shoot some big bluefin. Or hopefully you can come back out here to Guam and shoot some dogs with us. But so far, yeah, we got a Northern Marianas trip coming up, and I think one more other than that. So stay tuned. Social media, OneDrop Spearfishing on Instagram, or one of us, but a Mount Ocean or the SpearFactor. And yeah, thanks for having us, Brett. Dude, we miss you.
Yeah, I miss you guys too, man.